She showed up the very next morning, heels clicking on my gravel driveway like she owned the place. I was still unpacking boxes when she shouted, "You can't be here! This property belongs to Maple Grove HOA." Her voice echoed across the lake. I turned around slowly, wiping sweat from my face. "Actually," I said, holding up the old deed my grandfather left me, "this land's been in my family for 3 generations." She laughed, one of those fake, sharp laughs that cuts through silence. "Nice try," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling 911. You're trespassing on HOA grounds." Before I could respond, her SUV screeched away, leaving a cloud of dust behind. 10 minutes later, I heard the sirens. 2 HOA officers in black uniforms stepped out, hands on their belts like they were real cops. Behind them, Karen crossed her arms, smirking. "Arrest him," she demanded. "He's refusing to leave community property." I looked around. Signs clearly said, "Maple Grove HOA boundary ends." "Here." The one right behind her SUV. I pointed at it, calm but firm. "You sure you want to do this?" I asked quietly. She blinked but didn't back down. "You think you're smart, huh? My husband's on the HOA board. You'll regret this." I didn't say anything, just handed the officers a copy of the county map, with a bold red line showing where the HOA's land ended and where mine began. One of them hesitated. "Ma'am," he said softly. "Technically, he's right. His cabin's outside HOA limits." Karen's smile disappeared. Her face turned red. "No! This can't be right. That property was supposed to be part of Maple Grove." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Maybe that's what you wanted. But what's on paper doesn't lie." She glared at me like she wanted to burn my house down. "We'll see about that," she hissed, walking back toward her car. I watched her drive off, knowing this wasn't over. She'd be back. And next time, she wouldn't come alone. She called 911 on land that didn't even belong to her. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of engines, multiple. When I stepped outside, 3 black HOA trucks were lined up along the dirt road, blocking my driveway. Karen was there again in her red blazer like it was armor, holding a clipboard and barking orders at the men, unloading orange cones and violation signs. She looked up at me and smiled sweetly, the kind of smile that hides poison. "Good morning. We've decided to resurvey the property lines. You may be standing on HOA land after all." I crossed my arms. "You mean the land that's been privately owned since 1956? My grandfather built this cabin before Maple Grove even existed." Karen ignored me, motioning to one of her so-called officers. "Post the notice on the door," she said. "We're citing him for illegal construction and boundary encroachment." The man hesitated, but she snapped, "Do it!" That's when I walked over, pulled the paper off the door, and handed it back to her. "Fake notices are still illegal," I said quietly. "Unless you want to explain this to real law enforcement." Her face twitched just for a second before she recovered. "You think you're untouchable? You're just some lucky heir. We run this community." I smiled. "No, Karen, you run your community. Not mine." Her jaw tightened. "We'll see about that. I'll have the county reassess this property. You'll be out of here by next week." I watched her storm off again, her SUV splashing gravel as it sped away. One of the HOA trucks followed, but another lingered. The driver rolled down his window, eyes meeting mine. "Between you and me," he said quietly, "she's gone too far this time." Then he drove off. That's when I knew Karen wasn't just going to push boundaries. She was planning something bigger, and I had to be ready. She thought a fake notice could erase my family's legacy. That night, rain poured over the lake and thunder rolled across the hills. I was inside checking old files my grandfather had stored in a steel box under the floorboards, maps, letters, and one worn-out envelope marked "County Ownership Proof." My instincts told me I'd need it soon. Around midnight, headlights flashed through the window. I stepped onto the porch and froze. Karen's SUV again, but this time she wasn't alone. 2 uniformed men stepped out, flashing badges. One said Maple Grove Security, but their badges didn't look official. Karen stood behind them, umbrella in hand, grinning like she'd already won. "We warned you," she said. "You didn't leave. Now we're removing you by order of the HOA." I took a step forward, calm but firm. "You have no jurisdiction here. This is county land, not community property. The taller man smirked. Sir, we have orders to clear this area tonight. Please cooperate. Orders from who? I asked. Karen interrupted. From the board and from me. Before I could respond, the men started walking toward my front door. I moved faster, blocking their path. Touch that door, I said, voice low, and it becomes trespassing. For a moment, the only sound was the rain hitting the porch roof. Then I pulled out my phone, hitting a contact labeled Sheriff Owens. Karen's smile vanished. Who are you calling? She snapped. The real police, I said. And before you ask, yeah, the sheriff's an old friend of my grandfather's. He helped him draw those property lines. You keep pretending don't exist. Her face went pale, but she tried to recover. You think your little stories will save you? You'll regret defying the HOA. I looked her dead in the eye. You already made your first mistake, Karen. You brought fake cops to real land. Within minutes, flashing blue lights appeared behind her SUV. Karen turned slowly, realizing those weren't her men this time. She brought fake cops, so I called the real ones. The real sheriff's cruiser pulled up, cutting through the rain. Sheriff Owens stepped out, hat low, coat soaked, but calm as ever. He walked right past Karen and her officers without a word, heading straight for me. Evening, son, he said, glancing at the fake badges. Heard there's been some trespassing trouble. Karen stepped forward fast. Sheriff, thank goodness you're here. This man broke into HOA land. We were just trying to enforce our regulations. Owens turned slowly, eyes narrowing. Regulations? He gestured toward the signs around the cabin that clearly said, private property outside. HOA. Seems like you're the one standing on private land, ma'am. Karen tried to laugh it off. There must be a mistake. The HOA has jurisdiction here. Owens took out his flashlight, shining it on her men's badges. Funny, these aren't county-issued. You boys want to tell me where you got them? The two fake officers froze. One mumbled, We're with Maple Grove Security. Owens's tone hardened. That's not law enforcement. Impersonating an officer is a felony. Hands where I can see them. Karen's face went white. Wait, no! They were just helping me. Owens ignored her, motioning for backup. Within minutes, real deputies arrived. They cuffed the two fake cops as Karen shouted over the rain, This is harassment! I run Maple Grove! You can't do this! Owens turned to her, voice calm but sharp. Ma'am, you've been trespassing. Filing false reports and interfering with a private property owner. You're lucky we're not adding obstruction to that list. I stood quietly, watching her world crumble. For once, she didn't have a comeback, just that hollow, stunned look of someone who finally realized she'd gone too far. Owens handed me his card. If she comes back, call me directly. I'll file the full report in the morning. Karen stared at me from across the driveway, drenched and furious. This isn't over, she hissed. You'll wish you never came here. I smiled faintly. Funny, I said. My grandfather used to say the same thing to people who didn't belong. She called 911 to arrest me and got her own people arrested instead. The next morning, the storm had cleared, but the air felt heavier, like the calm before another fight. I stood on the porch sipping coffee, watching the sunrise shimmer over the lake. For a brief moment, it felt peaceful, until I saw a line of cars slowly pulling up on the road again. Karen was back. No cops this time, just a group of HOA board members in suits, holding clipboards and cameras. She stepped out first. Her hair still damp from last night's rain, but her ego untouched. Morning, she said sharply. We're conducting an official property audit. If your land overlaps our boundaries by even 1 inch, you'll be evicted. I sighed. You ever think about just apologizing? Her lips tightened. I don't apologize to rule breakers. The men spread out, taking pictures of my fence, mailbox, even the tree line. I noticed one of them secretly planting a metal stake near the corner of my property, right past the actual border. That's when I realized their plan. They were trying to move the boundary markers to make it look like I was encroaching on HOA land. I pulled out my phone again, but not to call anyone. I just pressed a button on the app linked to my security cameras. Little red lights blinked from the trees around us, recording everything. Karen saw it and froze. What are those? Cameras, I said casually. High-resolution motion activated. They've been recording since you arrived, one of the board members muttered. Karen, maybe we should leave. She glared at him. No! He's bluffing. I walked over to the stake they planted, pulled it out of the ground, and held it up. If I were bluffing, you wouldn't be on video committing property fraud right now. Karen's face flushed red. You can't use that footage. This is private HOA business. I smirked. Not on private land, it's not. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. You think you've won, but I'll find another way. You're playing with people who have power. I leaned in slightly. And you're standing on land that has history. Big difference. She stormed off again, her car kicking up dust as she sped away. I watched her go, knowing she was planning her next move. But she didn't know. I had just baited her into her biggest mistake yet. She tried to move my property line. I caught her on camera doing it. 2 days later, everything went quiet. Too quiet. No cars, no fake notices, no HOA letters. Just silence. It almost felt wrong. I knew Karen wasn't the type to give up. She was the type to wait until no one was looking. That evening, as I was repairing the old fence near the back of my land, I heard rustling near the trees. Then the sound of digging. I moved closer, staying hidden behind a pine trunk. There she was, Karen, flashlight in one hand, shovel in the other, digging around one of the old survey markers. She was trying to bury the original border post and replace it with a new one. I quietly hit record on my phone. When I stepped out, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. Working late, Karen? She stammered. I was just checking the boundary. With a shovel? I interrupted. And a brand new stake marked Maple Grove HOA? Her face turned pale. You don't understand. This land belongs to the community. It always has. I took a few steps closer, voice calm but sharp. You keep saying that. But this land was my grandfather's before you even had a community. And I've got every inch of it recorded from last night, from this morning, and now from right now. Karen's hands started shaking. You wouldn't upload it, I said. Already did. Sheriff Owens has the footage, and so does the county office. She dropped the shovel, her voice trembling. You set me up. I shook my head. No, Karen, you set yourself up the moment you decided the rules didn't apply to you. Behind us, headlights appeared on the road again. Owens' cruiser. He stepped out, saw the scene, and sighed. Didn't think I'd see you again this soon, ma'am. Karen tried to plead. This is a misunderstanding. Owens pointed to the half-buried marker. Not from where I'm standing. He turned to me. You mind if I take this as evidence? Be my guest, I said. Karen's shoulders slumped. The woman who'd arrived in heels and arrogance was now covered in dirt, shaking as she realized she was done. She tried to bury the evidence, but all she did was dig her own hole. By morning, the whole neighborhood knew. News crews lined the road, their cameras pointed straight at Karen's house. Word spread fast. HOA president caught tampering with private property. It was all over social media before noon. I watched it unfold from my porch. Coffee in hand as her precious reputation crumbled live on TV. HOA members were calling for her resignation, and the county had opened a full investigation into her fake enforcement actions. A black sedan pulled into my driveway. It was Sheriff Owens again. He got out with a small grin. Well, he said, looks like you won't have to worry about her much longer. The county's pressing charges, fraud, impersonation, and property interference. I nodded slowly. About time. He looked toward Karen's house across the lake. Reporters crowded around her gate as she tried to hide her face. Owens turned back to me. You handled this better than most would have. Your grandfather would have been proud. That hit me harder than I expected. He always said this land doesn't just belong to us, it represents us. I said quietly. If we let someone bully us off it, we lose more than property. Owens nodded. Seems like you understand that better than anyone. Later that day, a few HOA residents stopped by. People who once ignored me now wanted to shake my hand. One man said, she made us all look bad. Thanks for standing up to her. I smiled politely. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it to remind people rules don't make you right. Truth does. That evening, as the sun went down, I saw Karen being led out of her house in handcuffs. She didn't shout this time, didn't threaten. She just looked across the lake toward my cabin, eyes hollow, realizing it was over. I turned away, closing the door behind me. Peace had finally returned to my land. She built her power on lies, and it all collapsed on camera. Weeks passed. The lake grew calm again. Birds returned. And for the first time since I'd moved in, I could walk my land without seeing Karen's SUV or fake security signs. The county officially restored the old boundaries, stamped and signed under my family's name. The cabin felt alive again, like it had been waiting for justice. I was sitting on the porch one evening, repairing a loose hinge, when I saw a familiar figure walking up the dirt path. It was one of the former HOA officers, the same man who'd warned me she was going too far. He handed me an envelope. "From the board," he said quietly. Inside was a formal letter. "The Maple Grove HOA offers an official apology for the actions of former President Karen Reed. We respect the private ownership of your land and thank you for your cooperation." I smiled, setting it down. "Didn't expect that." The man nodded. "She's facing trial next month. The rest of us, we're just trying to clean up what she left behind." I looked across the lake toward the old Maple Grove sign that once stood as her pride. It was gone now, replaced with a new one, smaller, humbler. As he turned to leave, I said, "Tell your people this. Power isn't about control. It's about respect. The moment you forget that, you lose everything." That night, I sat by the fire thinking about how fast greed turns into downfall. Karen had all the power, all the backing, but none of the truth. In the end, truth won. I glanced at my grandfather's photo on the mantel and smiled. "Guess we showed them, old man," I said softly. The camera of my security light blinked once, reflecting off the calm water, like a final reminder that every lie eventually gets caught in the light. They tried to claim my land, but all they did was prove who it really belonged to. Karen loses it after I buy an old house outside her HOA, calls 911, claims my inherited land is HOA's.